Good morning, good evening. Um, I normally would not have a conversation about this, but um, I feel like I have no choice. So we're going to have to get into it. I am. Oh, cool. Anyway, okay. I normally wouldn't get into it, but I feel like I have no choice. And I don't talk about Love and Marriage Huntsville at all. Well, maybe a few times, but at this point, um, it is a conversation that needs to be had. So I am, how can I begin to kind of, okay, so I'll set the scene. I only want to talk about the Maurice and Kimberly situation. I actually do have a huge problem with Mel and Martell situation, and there is a bit of an overlap here. Hmm. Let's first talk about the situation. There is a bit of an overlap. The overlap is I am a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, and as I watch the situation that's unfolding with Mel and Kimmy, Mel is a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. So is Tisha, but I don't like Tisha. And I'm struggling. And this is even more of a credit to Tisha for sure. Also a credit to Tisha because I'm gonna let you know right now. And maybe I'm cut from a different cloth. There are people on my, even in my line, that we never necessarily, I can't thoroughly explain why a few of us became much more closer than some of the rest of us. And personally, I don't talk to members of my line consistently. Sorry. It's one of their birthdays today. I don't talk to all of them consistently, but I'm gonna let you know right now. If something were to happen to them, as soon as I know something were to happen to them, and we are in driving distance, not only am I 100% there, but I'm also on the phone there. And I will say, like, one of my wasn't my line sister, she was my Neo. She was going through a divorce, but the way that she's handling it, she's doing it so internally that it makes it difficult for me to kind of reach out because she clearly isn't wanting to broadcast that. And so I didn't. But when my line sister had some issues with her now husband, which I'm not a fan of him, but that's not my business. Um, I gave whatever support I could, even when we're not close. Now, here's the crux of it. If one of my line sisters was on national television and is experiencing all of this, and then on top of experiencing it, then he's threatening to put out a sex tape. I want you to know that not only would I be present, but I mean, just even me as a person who's never met Mel, I am, on Twitter offering support and social media offering support because as from one sword to the next. So it's very, very difficult for me to look at Tisha. And this is really, I think, the core of me not liking Tisha. Because there are some of my swords I do not absolutely like. Not in my chapter, but in my former graduate chapter, absolutely can't stand. And there are some swords along the way that absolutely do not like, cannot stand. I feel I have a justifiable reason, but I'm gonna let you know if not near none of them would I treat them with the same level of disdain. I may ignore you, but what I would not do is I would not treat you with the same level of disdain that Tisha has treated Mel. And it makes me question, what is your definition of a sisterhood? And the way that Mel is showing up for Kimberly and me is exactly, even though I may not be a member of Delta Sigma Theta because don't want to be, no desire. That's not my problem. He's showing up as a D9 sister. First of all, she's showing up as a woman, but she's also showing up as a D9 sister. If I had a friend that is going through, especially a Delta, a D9 sister, I'm going to show up. The way that Kimmy treated Kimmy this entire show, like season after season, it further lets me know that I don't know what kind of process or what your definition of sisterhood is, but you need to look it up because this is not how we operate as sisters. It's not how we operate. And then we talk about how we operate as people, point blank. With all that being said, Kimmy gets on national television sharing her experience as a woman with breast cancer. She has this husband who last season they get into this group counseling, and the thing that is his problem with her is she's not having sex with him enough, all the while knowing that she's been diagnosed with breast cancer. The problem I have with this is that it is, as a person who have watched someone go through breast cancer, the idea that you are this concerned about sex is beyond insensitive. And so this year, she does bring up the conversation in the season a few episodes ago about how her libido has dropped. and how she isn't perform how she's performing for him while they are in bed, because she knows what his needs are and she wants to be able to live up to being a spouse. Now, people took it and was like, this is so ridiculous of him. And I was torn, actually, because I do think that Maurice is trash for this, right? But I'm actually not upset with Kimmy's perspective, because years ago, when I was pregnant with my first daughter, and right, I think when my daughter was about to be born, or right after she was born, a close friend of mine who I've known my entire life was like, how's your relationship doing? And she's the only one who ever asked, because she was really genuinely kind of commenting on, like, hey, everything changes once the baby comes, or once the baby's here in the first few months. And I was just, and within the first few months of our, I would say about a month and a half, 2 months that our baby was here, it was, both of us was overwhelmed and really excited and did almost everything together. So it didn't feel like things were not going well. It wasn't until 2 months, the second month, things kind of went sour. And that's when I began to really fully understand what she was explaining, like, and it was depressing between this kid and him. It was, you're trying to figure out, his life has shifted because you tend, when you're single, when you're married with no kids, you can center your husband more. But when the baby comes, your center shifts and your kids become the center. And that was not an easy shift. And so when my friend another friend had her baby, my sorority sister, and I was like, this is going to sound really ridiculous, really kind of cool. And I regret my advice, but I was speaking from my experience, is that in the midst of you trying to juggle this new thing that you have and working and all these things, just don't forget your husband. And because it's not that I didn't forget, but it was hard. Begin to start managing his expectations and his needs with me trying to figure out how to be a mom. And I say this because it's very difficult to do so, and and this includes having sex, because you're just overwhelmed. And so when my friend eventually got cancer, it's like, and then, here's the thing. When you have a baby, you don't know what your sexual drive is going to change. Sometimes it drives more higher, lesser. When you're pregnant, for me at least, your drive can be extremely high, even if you're tired. Because the thing is especially if you're carrying a girl, you are constantly lubricated. I think if I'm not mistaken, the boy is the same way too, but you're really lubricated if you're carrying a girl. So it makes it easy to consistently do. And sex is better pregnant because you're more sensitive in that area. But once the baby comes, everything dries up, right? And this is why I give this example um, because when I saw this, so I understood Kimmy's mindset. She hasn't been married. If she's been married, I'm not sure, but I know she's had a long-term relationship with her, before. And that relationship, I'm sure, had that same thing. So in her head, she's thinking that when she gets married, which is why in this interview, I understood the interview that she did with TGIF, when she said, I already made in my head that I was going to never go 7 days in my marriage without doing with him. I get why she felt that way because you do need, because when she was in the relationship with her former baby's father, that could be an issue when you're taking care of a kid. So she's probably applying what happened to her then in that relationship to what's happening to her if she plans on having another long-term relationship in marriage. I get the mind frame. So I'm not even upset with the fact that Kimmy is taking it on herself to want to keep this active, even though it could be painful for her. It could be not what she feels at the moment. And she's going to make it as pleasurable of an experience for him and as least painful of experience for her. Because I hate to say this, I probably would do the same. Even if my husband would be like, you don't have to do this. I'd be like, nah, I am with her 1,000% with the mind frame. So cancel me. No, don't cancel me. But I'm with her, right? This is where you lost me. I'm gonna tell you where you lost me. Maurice. So Maurice gets on Carlos King and he makes it sound like I hate it when he said that she endures this for him, like this another sacrifice. And it's like, sir, there's a lot of sacrifices she's making. Like you're making her be more, you're not, she doesn't have a nanny every single day. And I mean, a person who cleans up after her every single day. And she absolutely doesn't have a cook for her every single day. She doesn't have a person that comes in all the time, 24 hours a day. She doesn't have in-home care. So therefore, the fact that she's taking responsibility consistently for the house, even if you had somebody come in and clean a couple hours, even if it was a couple hours a day or a couple hours a week, that's not enough for somebody who's going through this. Plus, she's continuously working. Plus, she's, you know, picking up the heavy load with your son. That seems like a lot. So then when you add to this by saying she's sacrificing herself, and then you make jokes with Carlos and you and Carlos are laughing at her being an actress, at her faking it, that he's married to an actress. I was like, man, you doing too much. And it made me this is where the D9 in me was like, this, holy. I was so upset listening to the interview. Like I was so upset, especially with my dean going through the same thing, just, and I didn't know how severe she was going through. And it was such a trigger. And I was really angry for her. Like, and then I got angry, like, where's your sorority sisters? Like, they should be pulling up on him. Like, it will be very difficult. When I kid you not, for me to have to watch this and for me not to pick up the phone. Do you know that I would be catching a flight out to Alabama? Sorry, we need to talk, but you're not going to. And the thing that angers me even more is she does have a son, and I would hate for her son to think that he should be treating some woman like this, because this is not how you treat a woman. So I was really annoyed. Like I was so annoyed that I could not contain myself. Moving forward. So they go on TGIF show and they give an interview clearly to clear up what Maurice said to Carlos King. And unfortunately, that interview made it worse. She was trying to be like, look, I didn't like the verbiage. Okay. Right. I didn't like the verbiage. Okay. What's up? What else? And then she turns and explains to him and then the issue is that he refused to apologize for how the words came out and how hurt she was. She literally said in this interview that I did not feel protected. And this is really a thing that he does not protect her and her feelings and her desires and her wants. And and it's just like she's supposed to just take it. The whole phrase of turn over and take it that you said, and you can't even apologize for that. I was like, don't do interviews anymore, please, Maurice. And Kimmy, like when you run all this stuff back, I know it's not a reason. I know that you won't get divorced over this, but I think it's very difficult to continue to be in a relationship with someone who absolutely doesn't give a damn about how you feel. And that's what he's saying. And this is a theme. It has not just with this issue, but with Kiowa, with all these. I mean, how he even got Monster to be the fact that he moved Monster into the house before, either before you got married or right after you got married, and didn't even tell you. And then you're going to be playing mom. I really just think that, and I know that it's difficult to untangle your life that you've already kind of put together, but at the end of the day, I don't like the example that this is setting for your son. I really, really don't. And I wish that you have a heart to heart because at this point, your son is an adult, and I would be perfectly okay with your son coming up to Maurice and being like, I don't like how you treated my mom. Because at this point, I'd be like, this is not how we do with my mother. Man to man, It's not okay that you're doing this, this, and this to my mom. Real talk. So something needs to change. And if you don't see it, I'm telling you that you need to see it. Like I'm over here emotional over the fact that my mother may die. And you're concerned with her laying over and taking it. How would somebody who would want to hear that about their mother? Like this ain't a game. This is her life. Anyway, I guess it's a hard watch. The Carlos King interview was a trash interview. This interview was a trash attempt to try to save whatever attempt of a pathetic excuse of a human being he was. So whatever that is, have a great night.